Imagine waking up one morning, sipping your coffee, scrolling through the news, and suddenly seeing a headline that stops you in your tracks. Trump proposes ending dual citizenship in the US. You pause. Wait, what? Is that even possible? For millions of Americans, this isn't just a policy debate. It's personal. It's the possibility of being forced to choose between two homes, two identities, two parts of who they are. And if you've ever held two passports, lived between cultures, or loved two countries, you know this hits deep. Dual citizenship for many isn't about divided loyalty. It's about a richer identity. It's the story of someone born in Chicago to Vietnamese parents, visiting their grandmother in Hanoi every summer, or the tech entrepreneur from Silicon Valley who's building bridges with startups in Berlin. It's the diplomat raised in both Washington, D.C. and Paris, who dreams in two languages and calls both places home. But now all of that could be at risk. Former President Donald Trump has never shied away from bold, often controversial policies. And now he's taking aim at what he sees as a threat to national security and American sovereignty: dual citizenship. According to Trump, if you hold allegiance to two countries, your loyalty to the United States might be compromised. He believes that being a citizen of more than one nation creates blurred lines that could be exploited in matters of security, politics, and power. He argues that in a world of global threats and shifting alliances, the U.S. needs full commitment, not divided attention. It's a claim that resonates with some, but raises serious alarms for many. After all, fears of espionage or foreign interference aren't new. There have been cases, real and imagined, of dual citizens caught in the middle of geopolitical tension, accused of having conflicting loyalties. But does that justify rethinking citizenship for millions? In today's episode, we're going to unpack this proposal. Where did it come from? How would it even work? And what does it say about who gets to be truly American in 2025? Let's start at the beginning and take a closer look at the people, the principles, and the politics behind this shocking idea. Have you ever thought about what it would feel like to be told you no longer belong? Not because of what you did, but simply because of where you or your parents came from? This isn't just policy talk. If Trump's proposal were to move forward, it would directly impact real people. Not abstract statistics or faceless dual nationals, but neighbors, co-workers, and even veterans who served this country. Let's break it down. First, there are the children of immigrants. Many of them are born in the U.S. and automatically granted citizenship, but they also inherit a second nationality from their parents. Under this proposal, they might be forced to choose between their American identity and their heritage, a decision no child should have to make. Then there are Americans living abroad, an estimated 9 million of them, people who move overseas for work, love, or adventure. Many eventually obtain local citizenship to make life easier. For things like healthcare, voting, or even opening a bank account. This change could force them into an impossible corner, abandon their second citizenship, or give up the country they still call home. I actually have a close friend who moved to Germany over a decade ago. He's married, raising kids, working at a global tech firm. He still files U.S. taxes, still votes absentee, still flies the American flag on July 4th. But under this policy, he might be labeled as not loyal enough. Now let's talk about military personnel and diplomats. Surprisingly, many of them hold dual citizenship, often because they were born overseas to American parents or grew up in cross-cultural households. They've risked their lives, represented our values abroad, and now we might question their loyalty. And finally, naturalized citizens, people who went through the long and challenging immigration process to become Americans. Many of them chose to keep their original citizenship as a connection to family or culture. To suddenly demand they give that up could feel like a betrayal of everything America promised them. These aren't just fringe cases. They're millions of stories, full of love, identity, and sacrifice, that could be disrupted by a sweeping political move. And personally, this part of the debate hits me the hardest, because it reminds me how easy it is to reduce people to policies, when in truth their lives are far more complex, far more human, But even if we set aside the personal side for a moment, we still have to ask, is this even legal? Can a president just revoke or restrict citizenship rights like that? Let's explore the constitutional challenges next. It's going to surprise you. So here's a question that's been on a lot of people's minds. Can this actually happen? Can a US president really end dual citizenship with the stroke of a pen? At first glance, it might sound like just another executive order away. But legally, it's far more complicated and, frankly, deeply unlikely. Let's unpack this. The US Constitution treats citizenship as a fundamental right, and rights like these can't be taken away lightly or politically. There's something called due process, which means the government can't just strip you of citizenship unless there's a clear legal reason and a fair legal process. And historically, the Supreme Court has stood firmly on this issue. Take the 1967 case Afroyim versus Rusk. It involved a man named Bais Afroyim, a naturalized U.S. citizen who voted in an Israeli election. The government tried to revoke his American citizenship because of it, but the court ruled in Afroyim's favor, saying that once citizenship is granted, it cannot be taken away without the person's consent. That case set a powerful precedent, one that protects both natural-born and naturalized citizens from arbitrary revocation. So even if Trump, or any president, tried to push this policy forward, it wouldn't be enough to sign an executive order. He'd need support from Congress, and possibly even a constitutional amendment, which would require approval from 2/3 of both the House and Senate, plus 3/4 of all U.S. states. Let's be honest, that's an uphill battle, even in the most united political climate. And that's before we even get to the legal challenges that would flood in from civil rights groups, immigration advocates, and dual citizens themselves. Personally, I find this part strangely reassuring, because no matter where you stand politically, the idea that our rights aren't so easily taken away, that's a cornerstone of democracy. It's a reminder that we have systems in place to protect people from overreach, and that matters. But here's the thing. Even if the legal roadblocks are massive, the conversation itself is already creating ripple effects. So what would happen if this proposal somehow moved forward? Let's look at the real-world consequences, from our economy to our global relationships, in the next section. Let's imagine just for a moment that this proposal did move forward. What would the ripple effects look like? Not just legally, but economically, emotionally, globally. Because this isn't just about paperwork or legal status. This is about real lives, real money, and real relationships between nations. First, the economic cost. If the US were to suddenly clamp down on dual citizenship, we could see a chilling effect on foreign investment. Imagine being a global entrepreneur, someone with roots in 2 countries, and suddenly you're told you have to choose one or the other. That's not just personal, that's business. That's talent, capital, and innovation potentially walking away from the US, and it's already happening in small ways. The number of Americans renouncing their citizenship has been steadily rising in recent years, hitting over 6,000 in 2020, which may not sound like much, but those aren't just numbers. They're professionals, creatives, diplomats, people the US has invested in. Now let's talk about something harder to measure, but maybe even more important, the emotional cost. Losing dual citizenship can feel like losing part of who you are. It's an identity crisis. I've talked to friends who grew up between cultures, born in one country, raised in another. For them, holding 2 passports isn't just about travel. It's a symbol of belonging, of not having to choose between where your heart lives and where your feet stand. Telling someone they can only belong to one side, that hits deep. And then there's the diplomatic fallout. Countries like Canada, Germany, and the UK allow dual citizenship and strongly support their diaspora communities. If the US were to revoke that option, don't be surprised if those nations respond in kind, tightening their policies toward Americans, restricting visas, or even retaliating in trade negotiations. One foreign policy expert even called this kind of move a soft power disaster waiting to happen. And I tend to agree. In a time when global alliances are more important than ever, from trade to security, do we really want to signal that America's closing its doors? This isn't just about passports, it's about perception. And perception is powerful. So yes, the stakes are high, and they go far beyond individual families. But this also brings us to a deeper, more personal question. What does loyalty mean in today's world? And can you love more than one country without being less American? Let's explore that next. What does it really mean to belong? Is it where you're born, where you build a life, or where your heart calls home? Even if that home has more than one flag. This is where the conversation goes beyond law and policy and touches something deeper. Because at the core of this debate is a very human question. Can loyalty be shared in a global world? Some say no. That allegiance to one nation must be absolute. That holding two passports means divided loyalty or even a national security risk. But history tells a more complicated story. America was built by people who carried more than one identity. Irish and American, Chinese and American, Nigerian and American, Jewish and American. And they didn't weaken the country, they enriched it. Take a walk through any American neighborhood and you'll hear languages, smell spices, see traditions that didn't originate on this soil, but have become part of it. That is the beauty and the truth of the American experience. And yet, even today, some people are asked to prove they belong more than others, to explain their accent, to justify their hyphen, to choose. But why should someone with a dual identity be seen as less committed? I know people, maybe you do too, who've served in the US military and represented their family's heritage abroad, who pay taxes here, raise children here, vote here, and still celebrate holidays from another homeland. That doesn't make them suspicious. It makes them whole. One former US diplomat, born to immigrant parents, once said, "My dual heritage never confused my loyalty. It clarified it. I know exactly what I'm defending, a country that's big enough to hold both." That's the America I believe in. And if we narrow the definition of loyalty so much that it can't include people like her, we risk shrinking the soul of this country. But of course, not everyone sees it that way. To some, this is all just politics, a strategy for power, not principle. So next, let's ask the question that's been quietly driving all of this. Is this really about national security, or is it just about winning an election? Let's be honest for a moment. When bold proposals like this one suddenly make headlines, especially in an election year, you've got to wonder, is this really about policy or is it about politics? Donald Trump has always been a master at stirring strong emotions, and the call to end dual citizenship, it hits right at the core of something many voters care about: national identity. But here's where things get interesting. This proposal didn't come from a legal think tank. It came from a campaign rally, from a candidate who's once again trying to ignite his base with a message they've heard before, just in a new form. America first. That's the banner. And to some, stripping dual citizens of their American identity seems like the ultimate loyalty test. But who exactly is this message for? Think about it. In battleground states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Arizona, where voter margins are razor thin, identity politics can move the needle. Some voters, especially those feeling anxious about immigration or globalism, respond to these messages. It's emotional, it's visceral, and it works. But here's my take, and maybe you'll agree. Playing politics with people's citizenship isn't just a strategy, it's a risk. Because while this rhetoric might rally a crowd, it also creates fear, confusion, and deep uncertainty for millions of Americans who live with dual identities every day. Policies that touch on who belongs, who gets to call this country home, should never be reduced to campaign slogans. They deserve thoughtful debate, not applause lines. And yet, this is exactly where we are, navigating a political landscape where identity has become ammunition. But amid all the noise, there's one question we can't afford to ignore. What should dual citizens do now? If you or someone you love holds two passports, what does this moment actually mean for you? Let's talk about that, practically, clearly, and with heart, in the next part. So, what now? If you're a dual citizen watching this, or you know someone who is, you might be wondering, am I in danger of losing my citizenship? Should I be worried? Those are valid questions, and you're not alone in asking them. Let me start with this. Right now, nothing has changed legally. Trump's proposal is just that, a proposal. And given the constitutional hurdles we discussed earlier, it's highly unlikely to become law anytime soon. But that doesn't mean you should ignore it. This moment is a wake-up call, not for panic, but for preparation. If you hold dual citizenship, now is a good time to review your documents. Make sure your passports, green cards, or naturalization papers are up to date. If you've ever been unsure about your citizenship status, this is the moment to clarify it. Reach out to legal resources like the ACLU, or consult immigration attorneys who specialize in nationality law. Many offer free consultations or community webinars. Embassies and consulates can also be a powerful source of help and reassurance. Use them. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, emotionally, mentally, know this: it's okay. Having your identity questioned, your future made uncertain by politics, is deeply personal. But you are not alone in this. Millions of people, maybe someone in your own neighborhood, carry two passports and two cultures with pride. They serve in our military, they launch companies, they raise families. They make America stronger, not weaker. So here's the bigger question we should all be asking right now. What kind of country does America want to be? A place that demands single loyalty at the cost of personal identity? Or a place that embraces complexity, connection, and global citizenship in a changing world? That choice isn't just up to politicians, it's up to us, the people who live, love, and contribute to this country every day. And maybe, just maybe, the strength of a nation isn't found in how tightly it closes its doors, but in how confidently it welcomes those with more than one home in their hearts. Thanks for being here. Thanks for thinking deeply with me. Let's keep the conversation going. So let's take a breath and look back at what we've uncovered together. We started with a bold, controversial proposal, ending dual citizenship in the United States. We explored who it would affect: millions of everyday people, immigrants, kids, expats, military families, people with real lives and real stakes. We unpacked the legal roadblocks, the emotional and diplomatic fallout, and the deeper moral questions at the heart of national identity. And we looked beyond the headlines, at the political strategy, the bigger picture, and what it all means for the future of America. Here's the truth. This issue isn't just about policy. It's about people. It's about who gets to belong, and whether our society has the courage to hold more than one truth at the same time. If you take one thing away from this video, let it be this. In a global world, identity is rarely simple, and that's not a weakness. That's a strength. Now here's my challenge to you. If this video opened your mind or touched your heart, share it with a friend, with your family, maybe even with someone who disagrees with you. Drop a comment below. Do you think America should end dual citizenship? Or is there a better way to protect national interest while honoring individual identity? And finally, if you found value in this conversation, hit like and subscribe, because these are the kinds of topics we need to talk about more, not less. Thanks for staying with me till the end. Until next time, stay informed, stay thoughtful, and stay kind.